The ocean was restless that afternoon, its waves crashing with a force that drew the attention of tourists scattered along the golden sand. Children laughed as they ran in and out of the surf, while couples stretched out on towels, soaking in the warm glow of the sun. But for one man, the beach was not a place of leisure. For him it was a rare break, a stolen few hours between double shifts, unpaid bills, and the endless responsibilities of raising a child alone. His name was Cole Harrington, a 35-year-old single father with shoulders worn down by life, yet eyes that never lost their quiet determination. He sat in the shade of an old striped umbrella, watching his daughter, Sophie, who was only 8 but carried a joy that reminded him every day why he fought so hard. Sophie's laughter echoed across the sand as she built lopsided castles, her small hands dripping wet from the sea. Cole allowed himself a brief smile, though the weight of tomorrow's worries never left him. Rent was due, his car was on its last legs, and the overtime at the docks never seemed enough. Still, for Sophie, he pushed through. Just as he was gathering his thoughts, he noticed sudden movement near the shoreline. At first, it looked like nothing, just a swimmer caught by the tide. But then the woman's hand flailed desperately above the water before disappearing under the surf. Cole's body reacted before his mind had time to reason. He bolted to his feet, sprinting across the sand, ignoring the shouts of panicked bystanders. The waves were unforgiving, but years of hard labor had built his strength. He dove in, fighting the undertow until his arms closed around the limp body of a woman. Her long dark hair clung to her face, and her skin was pale, her chest frighteningly still. He dragged her to shore, every second stretching like eternity. People gathered, gasping and murmuring, but no one dared step forward. Cole fell to his knees, placing her gently on the sand. He tilted her head back, pressed his lips to hers, and began CPR with steady, desperate rhythm. 1 breath. 2. His hands pressed firmly, willing life back into her body. Then suddenly a sputter. Water spilled from her lips, and her chest rose with a ragged breath. The crowd erupted in relieved applause, but Cole only exhaled slowly, his heart pounding. She blinked open, her eyes dazed and fragile, locking onto his. For a moment, it felt like the world around them vanished. The roar of the ocean, the crowd's chatter. Everything fell silent. Viewers, if you believe in the power of kindness, in the strength of second chances, and in everyday heroes who step forward without hesitation, please take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Journal. Your support helps spread stories that inspire and remind us of the good in the world. The woman's name was Adriana Vale, though Cole didn't know it yet. To the world, she was a billionaire, an heiress to a vast empire of resorts, properties, and luxury brands. But to Cole, she was simply a stranger whose life he had saved. Adriana sat trembling on the sand, her breath uneven, her body recovering from the shock. She tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. Cole rested a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You're safe now," he said softly, before slipping back into the crowd, returning to Sophie as though nothing had happened. He had never been the type to linger in the spotlight, yet Adriana couldn't forget the face of the man who had breathed life back into her. In the days that followed, she replayed the moment again and again. She had built a world where people bowed to her name, yet when she was helpless, surrounded by strangers, it was an ordinary man, an exhausted father in faded jeans and a worn T-shirt, who had risked everything to save her. 2 days later, Adriana found herself restless in her glass-walled penthouse overlooking the city skyline. Wealth surrounded her, polished marble floors, towering windows, staff who bowed at every request. Yet she felt an emptiness that no amount of luxury could fill. For years she had lived shielded by money, partners, and contracts, but not once had anyone looked at her with the raw humanity that Cole had in that single desperate moment. She made a decision that startled even her. She needed to find him. Meanwhile, Cole's life carried on in its exhausting rhythm. He woke before sunrise, packed Sophie's lunch, dropped her at school, and headed to the docks. The salt air clung to his skin as he hauled crates, his back straining under the weight. The men he worked alongside laughed and cursed, but Cole remained quiet, his thoughts fixed on keeping Sophie's world stable. He never mentioned the rescue on the beach. To him, it was just what anyone should do. One afternoon, Sophie tugged at his sleeve as they left the grocery store. "Daddy, that lady keeps looking at us," she whispered. Cole turned to see a sleek black car parked by the curb, and from it stepped Adriana. She wasn't draped in diamonds or designer gowns. Instead, she wore a simple sundress, her hair flowing freely. She smiled gently, though nerves flickered behind her eyes. Cole stiffened, unsure why a woman like her would approach him. Adriana introduced herself humbly, thanking him for saving her life. She knelt to Sophie's level, complimenting her sandcastle drawings still tucked under her arm. Sophie beamed instantly, but Cole remained guarded. Wealth, he had always believed, complicated everything. Yet there was something in Adriana's presence, something stripped of arrogance, that made him pause. Over the following weeks, Adriana found ways to cross paths with them again. Sometimes it was at the local park where Sophie played, other times at the small cafe where Cole grabbed his one indulgence, black coffee. She never flaunted who she was. She simply listened, laughed, and shared moments of ordinary simplicity. Slowly, Cole began to see past his skepticism. Adriana wasn't the untouchable figure he had assumed. She was lonely, searching for something real beyond boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. But as their bond deepened, challenges loomed. Adriana's world was one of scrutiny. Photographers, headlines, investors who analyzed her every move. When the first picture surfaced of her walking hand in hand with Sophie at the park, tabloids erupted. Billionaire heiress spotted with unknown dock worker. The headlines screamed. Cole's quiet life was suddenly invaded. Neighbors whispered. His boss questioned his focus. And worst of all, Sophie asked why people were laughing at their picture. Cole's instinct was to retreat. He told Adriana they couldn't live under the microscope of her fame. He was a man barely keeping his head above water. She was a woman whose wealth could drown him. Adriana listened quietly, tears threatening her composure. "Cole," she said softly, "I would trade every dollar, every company, every piece of this empire if it meant I could have a life that felt real. You saved my life once on that beach, but what you don't see is, you're saving it every day you let me be part of yours." Still, Cole struggled with pride. Accepting help, love, or belonging felt like weakness after years of standing alone. But one evening, Sophie climbed into his lap, her eyes earnest. "Daddy," she whispered, "I like Miss Adriana. She makes you smile. Don't push her away." It was in that child's simple wisdom that Cole realized love was not a burden but a gift. So, on a golden afternoon much like the day they first met, Cole invited Adriana back to the same beach. Sophie ran ahead with her bucket, chasing gulls as the tide lapped the shore. Cole turned to Adriana, the wind carrying his words. He admitted his fears, his insecurities, but also the undeniable truth. She had changed his life, not with money, but with presence, kindness, and courage. Adriana reached for his hand, her smile breaking like sunlight after storm clouds. In that moment, the waves no longer seemed threatening. They were simply the music to a new beginning. And as they stood there, Sophie darted between them, giggling as she took both their hands. It was no longer a picture of survival or wealth. It was a picture of family, fragile yet powerful, forged by fate and strengthened by love. If this story touched your heart, please support our channel, Kindness Journal, by liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Your engagement allows us to continue bringing stories of courage, love, and second chances into the world. And before you go, we'd love to hear from you. Comment below and tell us, do you believe love can appear in the most unexpected moments? Because sometimes, one act of kindness changes everything.